Hi, Steve with Brownells, and I'm here at 85 on 80 with Scott Volquartsen. And Scott, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having us.
I thought as long as you were here, we'd talk a little bit about how you and Brownells have been doing business over the years, how far you go back, things like that.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Brownells is actually our first main dealer, wholesaler that started back with my dad. And if you even go before that, before we started making our own parts, he actually would talk to Bob Brownell.
Oh.
And Bob would help him out with some questions when it came to refinishing and different things. And Dad was always very grateful for that. So when he started doing his parts, you know, obviously the first choice, being an Iowa-based company as well, was to come to Brownells.
Nice, nice.
And, you know, fast forward to the 90s, we actually had a couple fires in the shop, and one of them took us to the ground. And Frank Brownell was so kind, he called Dad and said, hey, you order whatever you need to get back on your feet with gunsmithing.
Wow.
We'll figure out the cost later when business is back up and running. So
I'd never heard that story before.
No, a lot of people haven't. And, you know,
Wow.
and the interesting thing is, as I've been in the industry a lot longer, you hear a lot of stories about that, like Frank.
Yeah.
Where, you know, never got any credit or anything like that for it, but he was always willing to help when it was needed.
Yep, we've been learning more and more about Frank and what he did, you know, without making a big fuss. And you're not the only one.
You know, and I always appreciated him because he'd also be very candid. And
Oh, very, very candid.
But he would, you know, if you sat back and thought about what he said,
Yeah.
it was very valuable.
Yes,
and it
is.
came from a place of wanting to help. It wasn't,
Right, right.
he just told it how it was, and that a lot of times that's what you need to hear.
And a lot of times he'd tried it and done it the wrong way,
Yeah.
and he didn't want you to repeat it, you know?
Yeah, and that's, you know, even when we came down here, I think it was for his 80th birthday when you guys held
Yeah.
a retail event, he came up and said a few things and had some advice. And
Yeah, he was very hands-on, not only with his employees, but actually with his suppliers, because he took a personal interest in all the factories.
And
basically.
there's another little story about him. I was out at a writers event where we were doing a launch with Smith & Wesson.
Mhm.
And one of the longtime writers commented, and this had nothing to do with Brownells, but he said, if there's one piece of advice I can give you is, he's like, every time we ever run a piece on Brownells, Frank will send a handwritten thank you.
Yes, yes.
He's like, it doesn't matter how big the piece is, how little. And he's like, that means a lot. And of that 3-day event, that's the one piece that stuck with me was, you know, even as successful as Brownells had been and as long as Frank had been around, he was still doing this. You know, I think that event was in 2010.
Oh, when I meet our older customers, longtime customers, they always want to brag about how they got a hand-signed letter from Frank and Pete for being such a good customer over the years.
And we still get hand-signed letters from Pete, which
Yeah,
is pretty special.
yeah, it's the personal touch, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah. And that's what, you know, why we always enjoy working with Brownells. We come to these events.
Mhm.
You know, I think the companies are different, but a lot of the values that we have are very similar.
Yep, yep. And even though we're here to kind of celebrate Frank's life and to have a celebration for Brownells and its suppliers in general, you did bring something along to show us that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we brought our, this is actually going to be available or it's going to be one of the prizes for tomorrow's event.
Yeah.
But it is our Scorpion 22 long rifle target pistol. This particular one has the American flag Cerakote on it.
Right.
But it's just something to, you know, we don't get to do a lot of events in Iowa. So when we do, we try to do something that can, you know, we can honor the people that, you know, support us here.
I know, we're only 2 hours apart, and yet the only time I see you is in Las Vegas or some other place around the world, you know, at
Yeah.
a trade show.
And you know, I think a lot of that, we blame it on being busy and different things, but a lot of it is we just don't take time to get down here and visit you guys.
I know it. And Frank was a lot about that too. He always had time to sit down with you,
Yeah.
you know. That was a big deal.
And that was the thing, whether we saw him at SHOT Show where he had commitments and obligations all over the place, it didn't matter. He always stopped. And the interesting thing, when you talk to him, he was talking to you. He wasn't
Very
scanning
much
the
so.
room of who should I go talk to next, or,
Right.
you know, it was, I'm talking to you right now and you have my undivided attention.
Yeah, and during his later years, he actually took a lot more time to just sit and talk with people coming to the booth. And people just loved it. You know, the customers and everybody, they just loved that.
Well, he had seen so much and been around the
Yeah.
game for so long that there's a lot of stories there.
But he knew everybody there, so rather
Yeah.
than him running around to everybody, he'd just wait till they came by the booth, because sooner or later everybody did.
Yeah. So there was a lot of lessons that we could take from him. I mean, even just, I've seen him at SHOT Show. It didn't matter if you were, you know, the president of one of the major manufacturers or just a dealer that was in attendance.
Yeah.
You know, he treated you the same.
Yeah, and it didn't matter if you wanted to talk about firearms, business, theology, geology, astrology. He would have a conversation with you.
Yes, he would.
Amazing man. So anyway, as you can see, Scott and his company have been with us forever, it seems like. Longer than I have.
Yeah, it's been at least, I think, 40 years almost.
Yeah.
Since, and it's always funny. Dad always tells the story when he first came out with one of the first aftermarket 1022 barrels. He brought it down here, or sent it down here, and they called him and they're like, "We're sorry, nobody's ever going to pay $200 for a 1022 barrel." And lucky for us, Dad was very stubborn.
Yeah.
So he stuck with it. But I remember at one of the first retail events, I think it was Mike Dillon that was there. And he said, I was in that room when we reviewed that barrel. And he said, we all agreed unanimously he was nuts. There's no way he's ever going to sell it.
That was back when a 1022 cost, what, $100 at the most?
$100 from Walmart. And,
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and now you look at it and guys spend thousands of dollars customizing their 1022.
Exactly. You showed them the way. Well, and the same with the pistols, the Ruger pistols, how you took those to that high level. It's just amazing.
And, you know, and that's what's fun building, you know, we build the complete pistols, but then also a lot of the parts that we sell. So guys can do it on their own pace, on their own budget, and they get to work on it themselves if they'd like. You know, some guys prefer to buy the complete package, but a lot of guys like to be, you know, do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah, we all think we're a bullseye shooter, you know, so.
I don't. I know I'm not.
I used to be, maybe. At least I can claim that. But yeah, Volquartsen has it what it takes for rimfire precision.
It's kind of where we specialize and what we enjoy.
It's a really good niche to be in, I would think.
It's you know, even though we've been doing it for so long, we hear a lot of stories of, you know, the obvious areas for new shooters, training new people, but we also get a lot of guys that are former military, former law enforcement, that either through injury, they can't shoot the larger stuff, or they've done it for 40 years and they just want to go plank. They don't want to, you know, they don't have anything to prove to anybody about what they can do with the larger calibers.
Yeah.
They just want to go spend range time with their family or their grandkids, and we want to make it as enjoyable as possible.
Yeah, and over the years, I've visited your facility, and it's pretty large. You got a lot of CNC machinery, you got EDM stuff, you got tons of stuff. But when you started out, there probably wasn't a heck of a lot in that building.
No, there was, you know, when Dad, he was basically a one-man shop, so it was just a lot of manual mills, a couple of manual lathes.
Yep.
And, you know, now it's expanded to wire EDM, CNC. Doesn't even look like the same shop.
Yeah, that's how Brownell started, very small, and just grew from there.
And that's one of the things that we enjoy is we do most of our machining in-house. So the growth may be a little bit slower at times.
Yeah, yeah.
But the other side is we can make adjustments. We can make changes to parts or test things on a much quicker basis than some of the larger companies.
Oh, sure. You probably had problems during the pandemic getting raw materials and stuff.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, we were pretty good there.
Good. Well, you're not dealing with hundreds of tons. You just need, you know, smaller quantities.
And it was some of the interesting things that we ran out of, or almost ran out of, was like lubricants for the machines.
Oh.
Things you don't even think about.
Yeah.
Because we planned for the raw materials. We kind of saw that coming. Never gave the, you know, cutting oils and different things like that a thought.
Wow. Anyway, you've come a long way, just like we have. I'm glad you were able to make it by for the 85 on 80 celebration.
We're looking forward to it.
All right. Thanks for
you.
coming by.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.